We are on historic Warden Field on the grounds of the United States Naval Academy at Annapolis, Maryland. For more than a century, this field has been used for ceremonies and parades, and that tradition continues to this day. With the Severn River and the United States Naval Academy Cemetery as a backdrop, this is one of the most important and sacred spaces on a campus full of such spots. For many years, this field was also used as the home field for Navy's varsity football and baseball teams. I'm David Gendell, and I'm the author of a new book called Battles at Annapolis, Two Remarkable Games in the Army-Navy Football Rivalry. This book tells the story of the two most recent games played here at Annapolis, 1893 and 1942. I entered this project with the deepest respect. This book is a tribute to the players, coaches, and those involved in these two remarkable football games. More than 130 years ago, in December 1893, an extraordinary football game was played on this field. And this book is to celebrate that game and those teams. The players from that game are not household names today, but they are legends. Army Cadet Lucian Stacy was a hard-hitting, scrappy athlete from Central Maine. His opponents tried to provoke him in this fierce temper. His teammates tried to keep him eligible and on the field. He would later die from malaria, contracted in service in Cuba. Army Cadet Thales Ames, known as Tilly, was the largest man on the field that afternoon and one of the most talented. Descended from Mayflower passengers and raised in the deep woods of Wisconsin, Ames was deeply committed to military service. He later became a mathematics professor at West Point. The Navy side featured Naval Cadet Worth Bagley, the son of a Confederate officer and the grandson of a North Carolina governor. Bagley ran wild on this field that afternoon, and after the game, he was carried off the field on the shoulders of his teammates and classmates. Worth Bagley was later killed by enemy fire on the deck of a torpedo boat while serving on the coast of Cuba. He was the first American killed in the Spanish-American War. This was the fourth meeting of the Service Academy rivals, and with both teams improving and the honor of the service branches seemingly at stake, the game had begun to take national proportions. Special trains delivered football fans to Annapolis from Washington and Baltimore, and by the time the game started, more than 8,000 spectators had assembled here on an expanded grandstand and along the sidelines. Among them, hundreds of active servicemen who came from the Army and Navy offices at nearby Washington. Officers from the USS New York, the Navy's newest battleship, came to Annapolis from the Brooklyn Navy Yard. They brought along their ship's mascot, a goat. It was the first appearance of a live mascot at a Navy sporting event. Lubricated by alcohol and deeply vested in the outcome of the game, thanks to large sums of cash wagered on its outcome, the crowd grew intense as the game unfolded. The flying wedge and the whirling wedge offensive formations would soon be banned from the game of college football due to their violence. However, they were still legal in 1893. The hard-hitting, closely fought match whipped the crowd into an emotional frenzy. In the grandstand and along the sidelines, songs and chants devolved into oaths, curses, and taunts. Soon, fistfights and shoving began to break out among certain sections of the crowd, and a rumor emerged that two officers from the rival service branches agreed to a duel. Stories from the game, and especially stories from the grandstand and sidelines, soon reached Washington, D.C., the president and his cabinet. In the wake of that heated 1893 game, Army and Navy were permitted to continue to play football, but they were prohibited from playing each other. It would take 6 years and an intervention from Theodore Roosevelt to renew the rivalry. 49 years later, the annual Service Academy football rivalry was a national sporting event, and each renewal attracted presidents, ambassadors, and movie stars. The match regularly drew more than 100,000 spectators and was played at some of the nation's biggest stadiums, including New York, Chicago, and most often at Philadelphia. In the fall of 1942, in the wake of the attack on Pearl Harbor and the United States' entry into a new world war, some questioned if Service Academy football was appropriate. Enter President Franklin Roosevelt, a former freshman football player at Harvard and recently elected to an unprecedented third term as Commander-in-Chief. Roosevelt insisted that the game be played and broadcast to Army outposts and Navy ships around the globe. A compromise was reached. The game would be played at Annapolis and on war footing. Strict ticketing limitations were put in place. Even the President and First Lady were ineligible to attend. With the West Point Corps of Cadets also prohibited from traveling, half of the brigade of midshipmen were ordered to cheer for Army. Songbooks and cheer sheets were printed and sent to Annapolis. A mule was borrowed from a local farm to stand in for Army's mascot. The 1942 Army-Navy football game was played at the Naval Academy's Thompson Stadium, a few hundred yards from Warden Field on the edge of Spa Creek, with an end zone open to the Severn River and the Chesapeake Bay. The site of Thompson Stadium is now occupied by the Academy's Lejeune Hall. The crowd in 1942 was the rivalry's smallest since that 1893 game. The game was played by fiercely patriotic young men who knew they would soon be leading others in combat and fighting for the same flag. But for one late November afternoon, they were football rivals. The game was intense, especially along the lines. Army Cadet Robin Olds, a top end, scrapped with midshipman lineman Jake LeBoon, resulting in lost teeth and a broken arm. Olds would later become a triple ace combat fighter pilot. LeBoon would later dive off the deck of a moving submarine under fire to rescue a downed airman in the Yellow Sea. Battles at Annapolis tells the true story of both of these remarkable games, how the games came to be played at Annapolis, how the Army and Navy players arrived at the service academies, and the details of the games themselves. It also follows players from both teams into combat, the Spanish-American War and World War II. While there are some wonderful books about the Army-Navy rivalry, these two games are often treated as sidebars in the epic history of the rivalry. My goal in researching and writing this new book was to showcase these two unique games, the players and coaches, and their impact on the sport and the rivalry. Retired Rear Admiral Tom Lynch contributed the book's foreword. Admiral Lynch was a Navy football captain and later served as superintendent at the Naval Academy. Battles at Annapolis is now available in paperback and digital formats. It includes more than 50 images representing both games. I hope you enjoy it. Go Navy, go Army.